Good morning. Rewind. Good morning. Welcome to Cedar Unitarian Universalist Church, a community where love works. Our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and to build a more just world. Together, here we dare to embody the beloved community. What a beautiful fall day it is today. It's so wonderful to be here, even though it's a bit challenging to be in here rather than out there, and I do appreciate your choosing to make that decision. Welcome. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, whatever your life circumstance, and whatever your political affiliation or how you intend to vote this election, you are welcome here. A warm welcome to those who are joining our service virtually, whether you're joining us on live stream right now or catching up with the service later, especially some of my friends in India. Welcome. We're so glad you're joining us for worship today. If you're new to Cedar Lane and feel comfortable doing so, would you mind raising your hand so we may see, welcome, and recognize you this morning? All right. Please keep those hands raised for just a moment while we offer a small gift in appreciation and gratitude for your choosing to worship with us today. Thank you. A special welcome to my colleague, the Reverend Allison Miller, who serves our Unitarian Universalist congregation in Morristown, New Jersey. Allison, with the Reverends Jean Pupke and Susan Frederick Gray, has answered the call for the UUA presidency. She will be available after the service, not only to connect with you and share some of her hopes and vision for our movement's future, but also to hear your hopes and aspirations. We will be gathering in the library at 12:30, so I hope you will join us to meet her and get to know a little bit more about how this amazing and complicated process works. Allison, welcome. All are invited to linger. Oh, I like that word. To linger after the service, to enjoy coffee, tea, donuts, and conversation. And should you choose to use a yellow mug, our members and friends will be sure to greet you, right, Cedar Lane members? Yes. Right, Cedar Lane members? Yes. Because at Cedar Lane, everybody is a member of the membership team, right? Yes. Amen. So I'd like to, at this time, call your attention to the order of service, the insert, which is the blue page, which has a plethora of wonderful announcements about many things happening on campus today and later this week. And I would like to highlight just a few. Our auction team is gearing up for our Falling for Cedar Lane auction that's happening in November, on November 12th. And so they are now accepting donations for the auction. So if you visit their table in the lounge after the service, you will get more information about how to do that. Also, this afternoon, we are joining congregations across the nation for a concert against gun violence and for peace. At 4 p.m. in the sanctuary, I will be joined by some of our wonderful musicians at Cedar Lane, as well as some of the interfaith leaders in Montgomery County who will be offering prayers and reflections. So I hope to see many of you there this afternoon at 4 for the concert across America against gun violence. We're also doing the work of discernment and leading to commitment to be a welcoming community to support some of the refugee families that are being welcomed and resettled in Montgomery County. So to that end, we will be gathering on Tuesday in the lounge at 7 p.m. to meet with members of the community of the Islamic Center in Gaithersburg that have been working with over a dozen families from Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, and Ethiopia. And this is a great opportunity not only to find out more about how they have been doing this important work of welcoming our neighbors, but also to explore how we might be helpful and supportive of this effort. So if you're interested, this is something that's open to the whole congregation. If you're interested, please join us on Tuesday at 7 p.m. It was wonderful that we celebrated the opening of the National Museum of African American History yesterday. What a historic moment. And it's an opportunity, as President Obama said in his remarks, an opportunity for us not only to claim, understand, and remember our history in a fuller sense, but also to use the lessons of history to continue to do the work that is in front of us and ahead of us, to build a more racially just, equitable, and harmonious society. So it's wonderful that we were able to be a part of this celebration this weekend, especially living here in the DC region. So today's service, 2 decades ago, Cedar Lane felt called to start a relationship with a Unitarian congregation in Dicsoszentmarton in northwest Romania, known as Transylvania. Now, Transylvania, which literally means the land beyond the forests or the trees, has been home to Unitarianism since Francis David, or Ferenc David, a Unitarian prophet and reformer, preached there in 1566. By the time of his death in 1579, there were 500 Unitarian churches there. And one of his followers was King John Sigismund, the first and probably only Unitarian king, who proclaimed an edict of religious tolerance in 1568, when the Inquisition was still happening in Europe. As a religious minority in Romania, Unitarians over the years have suffered persecution, first from Catholic rulers, then from the combined forces of fascism, Nazism, and communism. Transylvanian Unitarians formed their first ties with North American Unitarian churches in the 1920s. But these ties were severed during the communist era and were reestablished in 1990 with the help of the Partner Church Council and the Unitarian Universalist Association. Today, Unitarianism continues to be a dynamic force in this region, with churches playing a vital role in village life. So this is what calls us to worship this morning: history, friendship, family, faith, radical hospitality, gratitude, sacrifice. The God of our hearts and our imaginations, the Spirit of life, all calling us to claim our heritage and to know that it is larger than we could ever have imagined. This month we have been exploring covenant, of how to be a covenanted community in right relationship with one another and in the world. Today we celebrate and reflect on our larger covenant of how to be in right relationship with our Unitarian siblings in Transylvania. In that spirit, let us now greet each other with a handshake or a hug or a high five or a fist bump as the beloved community that we are. You have a glass here. Let us center ourselves. Let us center ourselves, inviting our mind, body, and spirit into the space made sacred by our presence and the presence of the holy in which we live, move, and have our being. Let this be a time of reflection, remembrance, celebration, recommitment, and worship.
As members of the 20th anniversary pilgrimage to Transylvania, kindle the chalice. Please rise in body and/or spirit to share in unison the words printed in your order of celebration. Every time we light a candle, we remember the past. Those who remember the past find in it directions for the present and the future, and can revive tradition in all its richness. It is the duty of each generation to study history, so that the light of the past may help us see clearly our calling in the present. It is our duty, too, on this special occasion. In this spirit, we kindle the chalice. Please remain as you are for our hymn, God Who Fills the Universe, number 37 in the gray hymnal.
In this world, there have always been many opinions about faith and salvation.
You need not think alike to love alike.
There must be knowledge in faith also.
Sanctified reason is the lantern of faith.
Religious reform can never be all at once, but gradually, step by step.
If they offer something better, I will gladly learn.
The most important spiritual function is conscience, the source of all spiritual joy and happiness.
Conscience will not be quieted by anything less than truth and justice.
We must accept God's truth in this lifetime. Salvation must be accomplished here on earth.
God is indivisible.
Age, Oz, Ishta.
We gather in this sacred space of community to find strength to face the many challenges of our lives. In this time of remembrance and reflection, we lift up those in our community who are living through significant passages, the small and extraordinary milestones of life. We pause to be present to our spiritual companions and to the concerns of our own hearts. May all who gather here be held in the embrace of this community of care. Our hearts go out to longtime member Ethel Hebbard, who is in at-home hospice care. We send healing thoughts to Glennis Belay and Marion Torcha, who both were recently in the hospital for surgeries and will be recovering at home. Our condolences to Michael McCrickard, Anita Lind, and their family on the death of Michael's mother after a long illness. Congratulations to Kathy and Stu Grubman on their son David's marriage to Jenna on September 10th. As Abby said, we celebrate the opening of the National Museum of African American History on Saturday in D.C. We continue to hold in our hearts all those whose lives are lost and whose loved ones' lives are lost to violence in our world. We mourn the deaths of Terrence Crutcher in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Keith Scott in Charlotte, North Carolina, victims of police violence, and hold their families and their communities in our thoughts and prayers this week. We also mourn the death of 5 people in Burlington, Washington, near Seattle, from yet another act of gun violence. May these friends of ours and all that lives unspoken in our hearts be held in the embrace of prayer and in the peace that the stillness of silence brings.
Let us continue in the spirit of prayer, reflection, or meditation. Nameless one of many names, we pause in the midst of the world's turmoil, in the midst of acts of violence and malice, in the midst of misunderstandings that keep us apart, in the midst of sorrow and grief, in the midst of our differences, in the midst of our pain, in the midst of our uncertainty and anxiety, we pause to be, to breathe, to remember, and to act. We remember those who have died in the gun violence that we have allowed to become routine in our lives. Be with all those, O Spirit, who suffer and grieve, who feel the pain of loss, who struggle to get through one more day, who feel the anger of injustice. Spirit of truth, help us witness to and speak the truth in love, even when it is hard or unpopular to do so. Spirit of justice, help us find our voice, grant us the courage to rise above our fears, to protest the needless deaths caused by gun violence, to bear witness, to stay woke, and to extend love. O Spirit of peace that dwells within and around, help us to be together in peace, to seek the truth in peace, to strive for an active peace that is more than just an absence of war and violence, but a way of being and living. Spirit of life and love, help us remember the hope inherent in life, hope that somehow keeps us from despair in the midst of all that is wrong in our world, hope that impels us to lead the best lives we can, lives that are free, that are peaceful, lives that strive for truth, justice, and harmony. May we awake to life, that life itself may awake within us and shine forth in the light of each new day. In the name of all that is holy, life-affirming, and life-sustaining, we say Shalom, Salam, Sat Sri Akal, Om Shanti, Amen. Blessed be. As we enter the silence together, those grieving the loss of a loved one or commemorating the anniversary of the loss of a loved one are invited to rise in body and or in spirit and to remain so until the hymn. Let us enter the silence.
Our primary guide on the first part of our journey to Transylvania this summer, the Reverend Maria Pop, is one of the first two women to become Unitarian ministers in Transylvania. After serving as a parish minister for 17 years, she was appointed in 2012 as secretary to the Bishop of the Unitarian Church in Transylvania and Hungary. This reading is from a sermon she gave to a Unitarian congregation in England 2 years ago. Quote, "If you ever come to Transylvania and see our Unitarian churches, you will notice that most of the bell towers have the inscription, Egy az Isten, God is one. This is the most known and dear statement of our faith we Hungarian Unitarians have. At the beginning, when our denomination emerged, we were known by names such as Arian, Anti-Trinitarian, and the followers of Francis David. The first document in which the name of our denomination appears as Unitarian is in the year 1600, and ever since this is how we are known. For me, being Unitarian is not just about a shared faith, but as much about loyalty, allegiance, and willingness to compromise. We survived throughout the centuries by individuals giving up freely some of their freedom for the sake of community, and I am prepared to do so every day. For me, a Unitarian and liberal, the freedom of religion and acceptance of other views and positions is a part of my religious identity. But I expect reciprocity. My missionary work starts and ends. We strive to serve our people and the cause of Unitarianism in spite of the coercive factors our double minority entails. With God's help, we will do so for centuries to come. So, paraphrasing Jesus, I could ask, what do you say that I am? I hope your answer, against all our differences, would be an acknowledgement that I am a fellow Unitarian traveler, sharing with you the road and following the same goal, even if we carry to sustain us, the things we carry to sustain us might be different.
Till this So first, I want to bring you greetings from our partner church minister, the Reverend Andre Naj, as conveyed through our friend Kare Virag. He says, please convey our grateful thanks and best wishes on behalf of our congregation to the members of the partnership ministry, to all our guests, and to the Cedar Lane congregation. We send our love and affection. May God bless their lives and their work. Kedvejborod oim. That means dear ones. We began our remarkable journey beyond the forest and into Transylvania and partnership around 1994, when the Reverend Roger Fritz, Bob McCluskey, Catherine Boschkar, and others explored the possibility of having a partner church in Transylvania. We were matched with the Unitarian Church in Dicsoszentmarton, a congregation located in roughly the center of Transylvania that traces its heritage back 448 years. Catherine briefly visited with their then minister and his wife, the Reverend and Mrs. Fazakas, in 1995. We agreed to be partners in faith and friendship. And so it began, our 20 years of mutual hospitality. The Zellmer family, Bill, Charlene, and their two teenagers, and the Reverend Roger Fritz, were the first pilgrims in July 1996. From the beginning, we exchanged gifts, not just tokens of appreciation, but the larger gifts of ourselves. Our partners opened their homes to us. They came here and shared our homes. We listened to their stories of their struggle under communism and indeed across the millennia. We shared the joys of family. We joined hands at meals and as we walked along the streets of Dicha and Maryland. We opened our hearts to each other. We learned of each other's history and traditions. Many of us even learned to enjoy Palanka, the remarkable homemade plum brandy, which tastes even better when it comes from the minister's still. Over the years, nearly 100 individual visits have been exchanged, with some of us, like myself, making this journey 3, or in Charlene's case, even 5 times. This summer, to mark our 20th anniversary, 17 of us journeyed together to Dicsoszentmarton to renew and honor the special bond we share. There is always a risk in relationships. We are ever grateful that we jumped into this one. Standing together with hands clasped and hearts open, we have woven the fabric of faith and friendship with our partners for the past 20 years. Through shared hospitality, we have come to know each other deeply and widely. 10 years ago, we presented them with a truly American gift of a quilted banner filled with symbols from both our congregations. In recognition of our growing relationship, our gift to them this summer was to enlarge that banner so that it now marks our 20th anniversary. And as you can see in the screen above us, it hangs on the large wall to the right of their 13th century pulpit. In turn, we are reminded of the powers of memory and attachment each time we see our large copiapha, given to us by the Dicha congregation to commemorate our 10th anniversary. When we visited this summer, our partner minister, Andre Naj, presented Abi with this gift to bring back to Bethesda as a keepsake in honor of our 20th anniversary. We unveil it and all its blessings from their congregation to ours. For the many gifts we have exchanged, we give thanks. For the promise of a shared future together, We are forever grateful. May it be so. Köszönöm szépen.
Jó reggelt. That's Hungarian for good morning. This is a year of pilgrimage for me. The Partner Church pilgrimage was very meaningful culturally, educationally, and spiritually. It was deepened by the fact that 10 days prior to leaving, we had returned from a family privilege to Jura, Scotland, where my father's family originated. The border trip next month will be my third. In Transylvania, we were privileged to be guided by Maria Pop, whose words we heard earlier, who shared many cultural insights with us and facilitated our lengthy audience with the bishop, her boss, in Kolozsvár. It was an added privilege to be able to ask the bishop how he envisioned Unitarian relevance in modern-day Romania. I enjoyed the whirlwind tour of Unitarian shrines. Our visit to the small church with a beautiful painted ceiling in the alabaster village is quite memorable. It was great to be in the cathedral in Torda, where our movement started in 1568, when Francis David proclaimed his anti-Trinitarian edict. I'm grateful to now understand the distinction between his rejectionist edict and Unitarianism, which was one of several positive impulses that emerged to fill the void he created. There was a great view from the citadel atop the mountain in Diva, where David was imprisoned, not to mention the busts of Nadia Comaneci and other world-class gymnasts beside the Romanian training center at the base of the mountain. I was moved when I realized that our hosts in Dicsoszentmarton, Ibi and Miklos, had moved out of their bedroom for us and were sleeping on a futon. I quickly learned to say no after Miki had plied me with 2 shots of Palenka, that homemade plum brandy, before breakfast on our first morning. We were deeply frustrated, but also touched with the mutual efforts to communicate using English-Hungarian and English-Romanian dictionaries. On our last night, knowing the words for I and tomorrow, I looked up 2 other words, and in my best stuttering Hungarian said, I sad leave tomorrow. Ibi responded with a big warm smile, and we hugged. I took an immediate affinity to Sándor, who visited Cedar Lane in 2009 as lay president at Disha. We share names on my father's side and resemblance on my mother's. He could easily pass at my cousin at a Whitford reunion. I never appreciated foreign languages until I started traveling overseas after college, and I didn't appreciate history until I was standing at the base of the Parthenon. So in that spirit, the clear highlight of my trip came on Sunday morning. Picture yourself sitting in a church constructed in the mid-13th century by the Catholics. You know that it was ceded to the Unitarians in Dicsoszentmarton shortly after the edict and has remained so for over 400 years. High in the elevated pulpit, your minister of color, who stands astride 3 continents of our movement, addresses the congregation seated as separate groups of women, children, and men, boldly exhorting them to deeper inclusiveness, while skillfully leaving open whether this means embracing Syrian refugees, acceptance of sexual preference, or something other. And then he, in this place, concludes his powerful sermon chanting, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
The offering is an invitation to demonstrate a commitment to the mission and ministry of our congregation and to the common values expressed in our Unitarian Universalist principles. Our offering reminds us that our congregation belongs to us, to each of us, as well as to the whole of us. It is an extension of our gratitude for our spiritual home, where we are invited to be who we are, as we are, and to live lives of joy, hope, integrity, and service. The offering to sustain the work and ministry of Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church will now be given and gratefully received. Thank you for your generosity.
Those of you who know me know I love to travel. The opportunity to visit someplace new was the first thing that excited me when Sandy and I considered the partner church trip. I had never been to Eastern Europe, and it was definitely on my bucket list. And the travel was fantastic. We added a couple days in Prague at the beginning of the trip, and then met up with our fellow Cedar Lane travelers in Budapest. Both of these cities did not disappoint. They were beautiful, interesting, complicated, and provided significant insight into 50 years of life behind the Iron Curtain. In addition to loving travel, I love learning, and I'm grateful I had the opportunity to learn so much on this trip. Once our group headed to Romania, we were presented with one fascinating learning experience after another. We met with the Transylvanian church bishop, who talked about our shared history and faith. We traveled with Maria Pop, who had incredible insight into the culture, politics, and religious history of Transylvania. I now have a deeper understanding of the contribution Unitarians made to European civilization because of these people and the excursions we went on with them. Then we spent 5 days in Disha, the home of our partner church. What did I learn there? First, our church has an incredible connection with theirs, and their parishioners know Cedar Lane much more intimately than I knew them before I went. That has changed. Second, as Sandy said, we stayed with a couple that does not speak any English. It was a challenging and at the same time moving and satisfying experience communicating without a shared language. If I could have one wish, it would be that someday we could have a meaningful conversation with them. Third, the church service itself. As you've heard, men and women sat separately. That was a surprise. Abi's sermon challenged them, and they were open to his message. And while they are much more traditionally Christian than the typical American Unitarian church, they are curious and respectful of our differences. Finally, and importantly for me, I got to know my fellow Cedar Lane travelers better and thoroughly enjoyed meeting the 3 members of the Eastern Church. I am thankful for our meals together, the chances to talk about our faith, and about many other aspects of the world and our lives. The last thing I'll say is that I learned that the church in Disha needs us. Our support can make such a difference in their ability to get out in their community, take care of their youth, and keep our denomination's roots going strong. The bridge we have built is a bridge to our past, but also a bridge to a different part of the world that can only enrich us as much as it enriches them.
So for more than 4 decades, I've been a student of Unitarian Universalist history. My love affair with our history deepened greatly in seminary, as it should, and has taken on new dimensions during the past 20 years as I worked as a parish minister and a denominational official. Our extraordinarily rich history dates back to the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, and theologically to the earliest days of Christianity and before. Our Unitarian roots are grounded in the intellectual and spiritual questioning of free-thinking pioneers in northern Italy, Switzerland, Poland, and Transylvania. Having heard so much about our Transylvanian forebears, I was thrilled when I heard the news of Cedar Lane's trip. Even better yet, the trip was perfectly scheduled during my long-awaited sabbatical from my work with the UUA. I've wanted to travel to Transylvania not only to explore our history, but also to see Central Europe before it's fully integrated into the European Union. Transylvania's own history is quite rich. For more than a millennia, Transylvania served as the buffer between Christianity and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire in the west and Islam and the Ottoman Turks in the east. As such, it was a mixing bowl for widely divergent philosophies, theologies, and cultures. An example, while we were in the charming town of Sibiu, Abi and I spent a few hours exploring its very impressive museum. In the gallery depicting 14th and 15th century Renaissance paintings, the artist depicted Ottoman Turks rather than Roman soldiers in the paintings of Jesus' crucifixion. These paintings viscerally demonstrate the influence that Islam played in the region's culture. Yet another example of the cultural and political mixing bowl that was Transylvania is the Edict of Torda, as already been mentioned. This decree is considered the very first declaration of religious freedom in the West. I should point out there was an earlier edict in India. It was issued in 1668 by King John Sigismund, and this edict guaranteed freedom to worship to Roman Catholics, Lutherans, Calvinists, and Unitarians, and freedom from persecution to Jews and Muslims. In issuing the decree, King Sigismund was greatly influenced by Francis David, a theologian who espoused Unitarianism. However, political and theological winds can change overnight. Within 3 years, Sigismund had died and was replaced as ruler of Transylvania by a Roman Catholic. Francis David who so convincingly argued for religious tolerance, was imprisoned in the fortress town of Diva, which you saw on the slides, and that's where he would die. On our trip, we visited the site where the edict was proclaimed. We saw the tomb of King Sigismund and his mother, Queen Isabella, and the ruins of the fortress. While we followed the trail of Unitarian history, the highlight of our travels is the friendships made among the Transylvanian Unitarians. Everywhere we traveled, we were warmly greeted, well-fed, and our various needs taken care of, which in my case was antibiotics. I caught something in Budapest. I will long remember sitting around the kitchen table of our host family, drinking tea, and occasionally Polinka, not for breakfast though, the home-brewed fruit brandy favored throughout Transylvania. Conversing around that kitchen table reminded me of the conversations that occur around our own Thanksgiving tables, when we share the small details of our lives, as well as our larger hopes and dreams for the coming year. We talked with our hosts about the long years of deprivation under communism and the economic challenges which have accompanied the shift to a free market economy. We talked with their grandchildren about their educational opportunities. For more than 350 years, the Unitarians of Transylvania have struggled to be true to the faith introduced by Francis David so many years ago. As an ethnic and religious minority, the Transylvanian Unitarians continue their struggle to retain their Unitarian faith and cultural identity as Romania's role in the larger European Union evolves. Our trip to Transylvania was a gift. We came away with many memories and a better understanding of the people we met and the places we visited. In 2 months, when we gather with our family and friends around a Thanksgiving table, just as our Transylvanian friends are doing today, I invite each of us to pause for a brief moment and reflect upon the courage of the Unitarian Transylvanians who have kept our faith alive through the centuries in their country. In the coming year, I hope you will join Cedar Lanes Partner Church Committee in exploring additional ways that we might leverage our resources to help our friends in Dicsoszentmarton. In doing so, we deepen the bonds of friendship that took root 20 years ago between our two congregations.
Thank you, Richard, Betsy, Sandy, Carol, and all my fellow pilgrims. John, Bill, Charlene, Kathy. It was such a joy, and Asa, to be traveling with you this past summer and to be part of the sacred pilgrimage. And it was a pilgrimage, even if you somehow were wondering if we were just drinking Palinka all the time, which I think we were, including my host, who was Reverend Andre Naj, and Dodi, he had his own brewery at his house, which was the first thing I got a tour of. And he realized that I was a kindred spirit and kept plying me with different types and kinds of palinka in the morning, in the early afternoon, in the late afternoon, before dinner, after dinner, and before going to bed. So suffice it to say, I was filled with the Spirit being in Transylvania. But it also made me realize that that's the component that's missing at Cedar Lane. So Andre trained me on how to create and manage a palinka brewery, which I proposed to our board of trustees that we create in the basement. Oh, come on, in the Chalice House, because I think if nothing else, it'll help us deal with some of our financial issues. But inappropriate as that idea is, the point here is one big takeaway for me, which I have always felt but experienced more fully on this trip, is how much we as Unitarian Universalists have to learn about the durability of our faith in tough times. You see, we have by and large not had a hard go of it in North America. That is why I think too many of us take our congregations for granted. Too often our congregations are weaker than they could and ought to be because too many Unitarian Universalists just assume that the church will always be there. And this is why a dozen times a year I hear that tired old saw about how someone likes the UU congregation because they don't have to attend it. I cannot imagine such a statement coming out of the mouth of any Unitarian or even being in the heart of any Unitarian associated with the Unitarian churches of Transylvania, because they know what it takes to sustain a liberal faith, and that quality has been part of this people over 4 centuries. We really could learn from them. The saga of our Transylvanian siblings reminds us of how fortunate we have been in this land to have religious liberty, how precious a right that is, how easily it can be taken away or slowly chipped away, how important it is that we who lift up freedom as our first principle remain vigilant against the authoritarians in our country. The saga of the Unitarians in Romania call us to support these people in their struggle for the right to be religious in the way they choose. Yes, but that saga also calls us to strengthen the cause of religious liberty wherever it may be challenged, especially here. 2 decades ago, we felt a call to reach out in friendship and offer support to our extended family. Today, our extended family is doing much better. And now our purpose in the partnership is not so much a matter of benevolence as it is about mutual knowing, sharing, and being together as equals as we all face the challenges of the 21st century. And together, navigate the complexities of the 21st century and be united and strengthened by the Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, which bears all things, hopes for all things, endures all things, and is greater than faith, greater than hope, and that never ends. Our responsibility is to make our future together full of hope and accomplishment. So may it be. Blessed be. In the spirit of gratitude for our friendship and partnership, and also celebrating the Transylvanian Thanksgiving, which is today, I invite you to rise in body and or in spirit to sing our closing hymn, We Give Thanks. colleague who sings like me. Thank you. I share these words from my friend, Reverend Judith Gellert. We depart with hope in our hearts, filled with peace and stillness. Our souls have found rest here because we have been with each other and with God. Guide us, protect us, help us always, O living God. Go in peace, go making peace, live gently, love mightily, and bow to the mystery. Please be seated for the postlude.